Hey everybody, I'm Evan Hammonds for bloodhorse.com and welcome to After the Wire, which is brought to you by EquiAid, the makers of Bodybuilder and other fine natural products. Now, we just saw the final two 100-point races on the road to the Kentucky Derby, and while on paper we weren't exactly too pumped up about the fields, but after we saw the races, there are a few horses that look as if they can step up in Louisville in a few weeks. It's also a big day for trainers Todd Pletcher and Ken McPeak, who would run 1-2 at Keeneland and 2-1 at Arkansas. First, let's go to Keeneland for the Toyota Bluegrass Stakes, where the polytrack always makes for tricky handicapping, and only two horses in the field were coming off a win. But it's a fact that two of the last 6 Derby winners have prepped on a synthetic surface. Earlier on the card, the turf-loving Last Full Measure would go from last to first in the Grade 1 Madison. Would that be a portent of things to come? Well, things were interesting right at the break when Java's War, the 9-2 second choice, broke awkwardly and was last as they went by the wire the first time. Ride Luke, breaking from post 13, shot to the front, with Undrafted skimming the fence into the first turn to challenge and then getting up and getting the lead. A 23-4 opening quarter and a 48 flat half were moderate to say the least, but Undrafted Action had the look of a sprinter, and Edgar Prado was really working hard to temper Ride Luke's want for the early lead. Palace Malice, who had been roughed up in a pair of starts in Louisiana, was running inside again, but had a smooth trip this time around. Now, Julien Leparoux never panicked on Java's War and didn't even ask for a run until they entered the far turn, and he had no qualms with taking him 6 and maybe even 7 wide into the stretch. Now, did it look like Ride Luke was as good as gone? It certainly did, but to quote Lee Corso, "Not so fast, my friend." Inside the 8th pole, Palace Malice wore down Ride Luke, but inside the 16th pole, Java's War fired about a 12 flat final 8th. It may even have been a shade faster to get up to win by a neck over Palace Malice. Now, the top two clearly deserve a shot at the Roses, despite the winner's anemic buyer speed figure of 89. Great things seemed to happen at Keeneland for breeder owner Charles Fipke, and they did again in the Bluegrass. Java's War had only made one other start this year, a solid second to Verrazano in the Tampa Bay Derby. Now, that was a pretty tough spot to make your 3-year-old debut, and he definitely needed the race. If you like a strong closer in the Derby, Java's War might be your guy. He's a son of Warpass, the 2007 champion 2-year-old who sadly only had 2 crops, but he is also the sire of the exciting Revolutionary. If anything, Warpass has definitely passed along his heart to these two. Now, speaking of needing a race, Micropoli's Overanalyzed was chucked into the deep end of the pool March 2nd in the Gotham Stakes off a 4-month break. The result was a 5th place drubbing behind Vijack as the favorite. Now, 4 published workouts at Palm Meadows Training Center followed, and he tried his hand in the Arkansas Derby, which really came up a tad light compared to years past. The result was, well, let's take a look. Overanalyzed had a good spot early, but was very wide into the first bend and down the backstretch. He had that lone pocket between the first and second flights, the spots you really want to be in to get comfortable and to get into rhythm. Now, 47 3/2 set the right tempo for him. Turning for home, he was wide again, but was moving best of all. Now, he may have come in slightly on Frack Daddy in the stretch, but it was clearly he was much the best. And the final 8th of a 12-2 was very solid, helped him separate himself from the pack. Some not-so-worthy notes. The lightly raced favorite, War Academy, was pulled up, and Oxbow failed to show much as the 3-1 second choice, while being in behind the winner turning for home. Now, the winner has made 6 starts since breaking his maiden. All 6 have come in graded stakes, including his nose win over Normandy Invasion in last year's Grade 2 Remsen Stakes. He's clearly moving in the right direction, and he makes for a super strong hand for trainer Todd Pletcher, who also has Verrazano and Revolutionary. Now, next week, we'll rank the top Derby prep efforts, and I'm going to toot my own horn here a little bit. Last year's top 2 will all have another in Bodemeister. I'd like to thank you all for watching After the Wire. Come on back next week.